Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about Cher. Now, she kind of popped up recently about a month or so ago when I was at a record store, and I usually go to record stores not to really buy anything but to kind of look at how records look like, because I kind of grew up in the CD era. And although my parents had a turntable, didn't have many records for them, and I wasn't really interested in records to begin with. But just going to a record store, seeing how the artists there, what they have, the albums, how the albums look like, the covers, opening the album, and so forth. It's always kind of interested in that. And I spotted two LPs there. One was, I think, called "The Best of Sonny and Cher." And the second LP I saw was Cher's Greatest Hits. And I think that was her solo one from the early 70s. The only song I recognized on that album was Bang Bang. So two compilation Cher albums. So, decided when I came back home, take a look at what I have for Cher. And this is what I have. First one I ever bought was If I Could Turn Back Time. This is Cher's Greatest Hits. Second one I bought was this one, The Very Best of Cher. This one was a double CD set. Third one I bought, called Cher, The Way of Love. This is also a compilation. Fourth one, the one you already saw, Cher Gold. This one's also a double CD set. And the other one I have is Cher, The Greatest Hits. This is a single disc set. I think it's a UK specific one. Now you may be asking why I have all these. Put it this way, after the first two, the rest I've got were from the time when, CDs were in a decline and stores were going bankrupt, or, stores that were selling CDs. So I was able to get those on clearance, and what the heck, even though a lot of them were repeats, I figured at those clearance prices, I may be able to pick up a few different songs or different versions and whatnot, or remastered ones. So that's why I got them. But anyway, notice the pattern. They're all compilation albums. Now, this made me think. Before I go on, I've first heard of Cher when I was a kid, listening to the radio, and this would be the oldie station. So they would play, I Got You Babe, and probably Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. Those two songs, and those were in heavy rotation. That's when I first knew of Cher and knew her music, and it's only from those two songs. Now, there might be another radio station that would play, that I would listen to infrequently, but when I do, it would be like, it's not like a top 40, like current hits. It's more like hits from the past decade at that time. So that would be like 80s and 90s. So they would play Cher, and that would be her, probably If I Could Turn Back Time, like songs like that, I would hear. So I would know Cher from that radio station as well, and some of the songs from there, from that era. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Cher. I just knew of her, and I knew some of her songs, and that's pretty much it. I didn't really care for her that much or anything in terms of like buying an album or anything like that. But when Believe, that album came out, that was a monster hit, and at that time, that's when I was also really into music. So with Believe, I would try to either go to the library first to see if there are any Cher albums out there. And as well as if I go to, like a Best Buy, Tower Records, Circuit City, something like that that would have CDs or music there, I would try to look up Cher and see what she would have. The funny thing is, at that time, and I didn't really think about it, but, besides Believe, the album, you can pretty much find anywhere. I didn't really see any other Cher albums. Okay, so probably none at all. I mean, I think Believe and then her singles from that album and maybe a compilation or two album like Sonny and Cher, Greatest Hits album. Probably if I could turn back time, maybe that was there too. But I've never, I've never seen any other like non-compilation album from Cher at any of those stores at that time. I don't recall seeing it. Put it this way. But again, I didn't really care, and I was more of a compilation album anyway at that time, so I didn't really care of that. But it kind of, when I think of it now, besides Believe, the album, and she had a recent album out called Dancing Queen, which is basically when she was doing the ABBA movie. She created that album. She had that album on. I think that's in 2017 or 2018. That was her latest one. Besides those two albums, I don't know any other album, non-compilation album that Cher has put out. I don't know any name of it. Nothing at all. I just can't think of anything. I don't recall seeing it either. And that means, and this is for the topic for the day is, does Cher have a signature album? And when I mean signature album, it's like an album when you think of a music artist. And, it's a popular music artist. And if you had to tell someone who doesn't know that artist to recommend like an album, this would be an album to recommend. Now, I would put a criteria for that, like minimum, that artist must have at least 5 albums put out on a major record label. That would be my criteria to give it, some time. Because I know there are other artists that were only able to put out maybe 1, 2, 3 albums, and you never hear from them again for one reason or another. And I wouldn't want to consider that. But basically, minimum 5 albums from a major record label put out. And from there, you would have, there's some level of success for that artist as well. For, there's at least 5 years of music. There might be a rare instance of that, but you're kind of guaranteed there's either a popular album or popular songs from some albums, and there should be one that you would recognize. So that's kind of like my criteria. Now they could be, an artist could have one signature album. That first artist that always comes to mind for that is Boz Scaggs, his Silk Degrees album. That's definitely his signature album. Believe it or not, the first album I bought from him was Hits, the Hits album. And I think majority, if not the whole album, was on the hits as well as some other songs on there. So that kind of tells you that the album was damn good. And, you can be an art. So if you have like a signature album like that, I would consider, like, if I was an artist, a music artist, I would consider having a signature album, kind of like one of those, like, hey, you made it. Now, it doesn't have to have all the hits, or it doesn't have to be like a pure hit album. It could just be an album that everyone knows and likes and can relate to. And, it sells a lot, obviously, too, but something like that. You kind of know you've made it. And then there's artists where if you can't think of a signature album because there's so many good ones, something like, when I'm trying to think of like Graduation versus College Dropout, Rumors versus Tusk. I don't know about that. Aftermath versus Sticky Fingers, something like that. Heck, any Beatles album, you can pretty much argue which was the better one. If you have more than one and it's hard to debate which one, you not only made it as a music artist, but you pretty much have a damn good career. I mean, you're very successful, put it this way. So, with Cher, again, going back to Cher, I can't think of anything. The only one I can only know of is Believe, because that's the one that time that it came out and it was a hit at the time. I was, into kind of going into music stores and looking up CDs and so forth. So I don't consider that a signature album. If any of you watching this think that Believe is her signature album, that's, to me, you're kind of desperate, because that album only had one song. Okay, two songs, Strong Enough, I give you that, but I've listened to that album. My friend and also my roommate had it too, and I listened to it, and I just really just Believe, right? If you really wanted Believe, just get, which I did at that time, just get her single. That's all you need, her single. You don't need to get the album. The album wasn't good. Outside of Believe, and again, let just the mentioned Dancing Queen. Let me ask you this. Besides those two that I mentioned, can you think of 5 albums outside of those two I just mentioned from Cher? Can you name 5 albums? Non-compilation albums, just 5 albums. Here's the kicker. Cher has created or has put out 26 or 27 albums in her career so far. And, she's still going, believe it or not. But 26, 20, that's a heck of a lot of albums, okay? You figured with all those albums, the probability of getting one album that's very popular and very, or what I would consider a signature album, like, hey, Cher, this is, talking about Cher, this album, or this album. Again, I can't think of any from that many albums. Maybe you can, but okay, going back, can you think of 5 albums outside of Believe and Dancing Queen? Can you name 5 of them? Now, if you can, I bet you can't, because I can't, and I'm pretty sure you can't. But if you can, of those 5 albums you just named, can you name me 5 songs from each of those 5 albums? I bet you can't. I really bet you can't. But if you can, you're definitely a hardcore Cher fan, no doubt about it. Because I can't think of any, and I'm pretty sure majority of you can't. Now, here's the thing. Because she doesn't have a signature album, what would you consider her? Because all the albums that you see I have are compilation albums. And here's the thing. I did some research on this, okay? This is from sharescholar.com, okay? It's a good site. I'll put down a link below. But as of 2022, when they have a page that was written on that site, they did a list of all her compilation albums, okay? There are, as of 2022, 147 different compilation albums of Cher out there that were made. 147. That's just, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. Now, a lot of these compilation albums are let's say, the same, but they're released in different regions or different countries, and they may have a slight track difference or either the ordering or some songs are switched here and there, but it's essentially the same album. But yet, they consider it a bit different because of the different track listing and being, released in a different country, maybe with different album cover as well and so forth. So they consider that a bit different. If you wanted to release the pure US releases, I didn't catch all that, but there are at least, just scrolling down, at least 20 plus different US releases, maybe more. I kind of just scrolled down. And here's the kicker. As of 2022, Cher has essentially put out one compilation album for 54 years. One compilation album for 54 years, at least one. And there's 10 years that there's no compilation album put out. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like to me for every album that Cher might put out, if there's like a at least a single that's a hit, minor hit or what major hit doesn't matter, or two, she would release a greatest hits or compilation album right after and just compile everything from there and before. I mean, that's what it seems like. Um, is that a good thing or bad thing? I don't know. Again, I always think as a to be a you've made it and be a successful music artist, it would be nice to have at least one album that's a signature album that everyone would know, everyone can point to. It was pretty successful, things like that. It seems like Cher doesn't have it, and again, I don't consider Believe being that one. That to me is out of the question. That's not a signature album at all. But so it's again, it seems like Cher is more of a singles compilation artist. Like her music, her albums are better as a compilation rather than the actual album itself. Regardless if there are a lot of repeats here and there, it just seems like she can sell it better, or the audience would probably prefer it more than the actual album. So, anyway, she's probably the only artist that I could think of at the moment, and there might be a few, but it's probably in a very small minority of artists, music artists, that have a better track record of compilation albums over their own albums. So, and she's pretty unique, especially with 27 albums put out. That's, I don't know. It's kind of strange. Maybe she's that type of artist. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. It's just kind of, you know, one of those, hey, it's Cher's just that. It just happens to be that. Now, is that a good thing or bad thing again? Put it this way. Let's say if you found a genie bottle or something, you rub the lamp and something, and a genie pops out, and the genie says, hey, you can have a career of this musical artist. You can pick of these two. You can only pick one, and that's the only wish. And it's not really a wish, it's your choice, but they will give you, that genie will give you an option to live out that career. The first option would be, let's say, Paul McCartney, okay? You can live out Paul McCartney's career. So you got the Beatles, you got the Wings, you got his solo stuff, so basically 60s, 70s, 80s, and a little bit of the 90s. You know, you can, but, you know, Paul McCartney, Beatles, you know, that's a great career to have. You know, and I'm not talking about money-wise or anything like that. Just a career, okay? Or you can choose Cher's career. Now, when you think about it, she had hits from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2010s up through, so far through Dancing Queen. We're talking about 6 decades of music output and hits from one artist. You know how many generations and eras and music genres that for popular music that have changed over 6 decades? I mean, that's freaking impressive. No matter what you say, that's just unbelievable. Throw in her concerts. I mean, she's known to tour a lot, concerts and everything. And here's a story about one. I had a buddy who had, and he was more of an alternative rock, hard rock music guy. He had a girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, but a girlfriend at the time that was into Cher. And he didn't know Cher and didn't like his music. He only knew Believe and didn't like that at all. But basically they went to a concert anyway, because she wanted him to go with them. Otherwise, you know, So, you know, you gotta kind of have to do what she says. And he came back and talked to me like a couple days later after concert, and he said he freaking loved it. I mean, he became a fan of Cher. So he was asking me what albums to buy and things like that. I'm like, I don't know, but you know, just get a greatest hits album. But apparently her concerts were damn good. I mean, you know, so it makes me want to go and wish I'd be able to see her in concert. I mean, that if it can change my buddy here into a Cher fan, hey, that her concert's got to be really good. So, but anyway, her concerts or tours, she's been doing that nonstop. And then throw in her movie star career. She's a movie star, right? She has a fantastic movie career. I think she won an Oscar too. I mean, throw that in for 6+ decades. I mean, she's still going on right now. So, if I had to pick between Paul McCartney's his entire career versus Cher, signature album be damn. I take Cher 100% of the time. I don't care what you're saying. I mean, I would love that longevity, that type of career, anytime. So if all I can do is put out singles and compilation albums as an artist, a music artist, but have that type of career and that longevity, I take it any day. Take it any day. I take it over any one of the Beatles, for sure. Tell me what you think. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate watching the video.